decide, and actually, sorry, let's back this up. Take us through your kind of like high school transition time. Like, what was going through your head? What did you decide? Like, what you want to do? And kind of take me through that time frame a little bit. And we can go through the whole thing.
This is interesting. And I think that when I look back at my life, I feel like I've lived multiple lives.
Interesting.
It feels like little experiences that kind of are standalone because I've done so many things.
Right.
But in high school, I would probably have been known as like a nerd, high achiever.
Nice.
Got good marks,
Yeah.
and was constantly told by my family members, my grandparents, like, oh, you can do anything you want. You can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer. But looking back at that, the pressure that put on me as someone who was a high achiever was like, you can do anything, which means you have to do something big. Yeah. And I found that like paralyzing.
Really?
Because it was kind of like this unspoken thing where you have all this potential, but don't you dare just do something normal. Like, if you just wanted to like work at a restaurant for the rest of your, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
you couldn't. Yeah.
That wouldn't be acceptable because you have so much potential.
Yeah.
So I remember feeling in that stage, and it's interesting now with my daughter being 16, so she's at that same age.
Yeah, she's just there.
Yeah, where the pressure is there to like, well, you got to pick your courses, and you got to pick the courses that are going to line up with the career path that you want to take. Right. So basically at 16 years old, you need to know what your future is going to be, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
And I remember feeling, paralyzed by that. And not only was I interested in the sciences, but I also excelled in the arts.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so I felt like, okay, I could go, as a kid, I said I wanted to be a doctor.
Right.
But then I also wanted to go to art school.
Oh, cool, yeah.
And what do you do with that?
Right.
And there was no, I felt like I didn't have a lot of people to talk to about that at the time. It felt like this decision I had to make by myself, and was in my head about it all the time. Like, which way do I go? And so my approach was go neither direction, actually. So I told, I told myself I would take the year off, right, after high school, like so many people do. I'll take the year, I'll work, I'll save money.
Yeah.
I partied a lot and spent my money. But then ultimately I joined the military at 19.
No kidding.
Which came completely out of left field for everybody in my life, because I had no like military influence, family members or anything like that.
It was just so random, eh?
Super random.
What?
Yeah. And everybody in my family was like, what? You're doing what?
Yeah.
But when I look back at that now, I think that was kind of like, I don't know, a rebellious act.
I was going to say, it seems like I'm rebelling against everything I should be doing. And it's like, no, we're going to do this one thing that nobody thought I would do.
Yeah, it was a little bit of that, and it was a little bit of fear of being stuck in my small town forever and not doing anything.
Where'd you grow up?
Dryden, Ontario.
Okay, yeah, so
population of about
smaller.
8,000 people.
Yeah, substantially smaller than Sudbury, which is also a small.
Yeah.
Like, people refer to it as, I want to leave the small town, go to big. Okay.
Yeah, and in that small community where the primary industry is like logging, and there was a pulp and paper mill.
Yeah. And
so people's biggest aspirations was like, you got to get your grade 12 math so you can get into the mill and get a good paying job.
Yeah.
And in that year that I took off was like, I saw the people that never left, and I didn't want to become that. So I honestly was like watching TV one night and saw like a recruiting commercial, and it was like, request an application online, and I did.
No kidding.
And then they contacted me like right away.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And sent me for, testing and at the nearest recruiting center. And the process happened so quickly it was like within a couple weeks, I had a job offer
Oh,
and
wow.
a date to leave for basic training. And yeah,
How long were you in the military for?
almost 5 years.
Oh, wow. Oh, no kidding. Yeah, like a good chunk of time.
A chunk of time,
Jeez.
yeah, a chunk of my 20s.
What was basic training like? Like, take us through that kind of stage. Like, what was kind of the process you went through?
Well, I think everybody has kind of an idea in their brain of
Yeah.
like what that looks like,
Yeah.
you know, based on movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Honestly, basic training wasn't as difficult as I anticipated it being.
Oh, that's good. I think.
But there's definitely like physical challenges, mental challenges, building mental toughness. And I was so naive. Like, you know, I got off the bus I did basic training in Saint Jean, Quebec.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I got off the bus and
Quebec.
yeah,
I love it. Okay.
I got off the bus and my master corporal that met me, I reach out my hand and like, hey, with my big smile, and I'm like, hey, I'm Amanda. And it's like, you know, there was no handshaking. It was like, you are Private Diamond. You are not Amanda. You know, I had no idea at all. And I was like, oh, okay. Started getting referred to as my service number. You know, that's how they would like refer to you, as the last 3 numbers in your service number. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. No, my personality here doesn't get me very far. Just
wow.
just fall in line and like do what you're told. That's how you excel. And I was like, okay. So I figured it out fairly quickly. Like I figured out that there was a game to it.
Interesting.
You know, all of the challenges in basic training were basically setting you up to fail, and seeing how you handled it was kind of the game. It was, and I started to notice that because I'm a person who's good at noticing patterns, I guess.
Yeah, that's a cool skill.
So I noticed that one day I would do inspection and they would shit all over me and say like, you know, your weapon isn't clean enough, or your boots aren't shiny enough, and this is an abomination, and this is terrible, and
you
should
go overboard with
just
it.
the reaction.
No
The reaction would be like, this is terrible. These are the worst boots I've ever seen, and they'd yell at you and swear at you. And,
and you have to just take it and everything.
And you just stand there and you take it, and then I would have the next day I would do nothing different, and the next day I'd have a different instructor, and they'd say, great boots, Private Diamond, good job. And I'm like,
messing with your head,
yeah. And so at that point I'm like, okay, this is just completely random. But they were trying to get you, they were imposing artificial stress to see how you handled it. So when I started to see the game for what it was, it was like the whole game was just take it, you know, don't get upset, don't take it personal, just take it and keep going. And so it got easier from there.
Allowed you to almost disconnect a bit and kind of like remove yourself out of your body, out of your personal feelings about it towards what's happening, and then just kind of let it happen to you and then move on.
And I noticed that the people that had the biggest emotional reactions to it had the hardest time. You know, the people that would break down and cry. Or there was things like, you know, we were on the 10th floor of this building.
Right.
The mega, that they called it. And we would finish inspection and they would say, okay, you have 5 minutes to get changed into your PT clothes and be out in the parking lot to go for a run. It's physically impossible. We're on the 10th floor of a building. We're not allowed to take elevators. We have to take the stairs. We need to change from our uniform, put our PT clothes on, be down in the parking lot. And it was like, so we would try our hardest and fail.
Of course,
And we'd get down there and they'd be like, that took you 13 minutes. Get back up there and try again.
Stop.
And so we would run back up those stairs, and it was 10 weeks of that.
No kidding,
basically.
Oh man, do you before I get into it, do you want me to move one of the heaters closer?
I feel like I've got heat
yeah.
down here, just not
Okay.
up here so much.
Yeah. I can shift it over. I was thinking about that.
My legs are toasty. Thank you.
There. Just move it with your feet.
I tend to
and you give me
run cold.
Yeah, fair enough. I was like, I laid it. I was like, I should probably tell. I was like, oh, I should have told her. Crap. Oh well. I was like, I'll get through it, but you know, it's you I care
all
about.
good.
Me
It's
not
all
so.
good.
Me not so much. Let's tilt that down. There you go. Yeah. So, how long was that phase of it? The like being yelled at in 5 minutes up and down the stairs.
10 weeks.
Okay.
And so it's a combination of, testing you physically, mentally, and then also educating you on basic military things. But like I said, it wasn't as challenging as I anticipated it being, that stage of it, because the military organization as a whole has a whole lot of jobs involved. You know, they need they need clerks, they need people that work in accounting, they need so basically that first stage is like designed to weed out the people who can't hack it, but also they want to accept as many as possible, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't incredibly challenging, but my next phase of training was soldier qualification training, which was for anybody that would potentially be deployed overseas, that sort of thing. So that was what I anticipated
okay.
basic training being. That was the tough stuff.
What was kind of something that was a lot more tough than you imagined it being in that next level? Like, there was maybe like one challenge that was like, this I thought this was going to be way easier, but it's not. Or is like the whole thing just exceeded?
It was just taken to the next level. It was a training that was run on an infantry base. So they were much tougher, but even though I could still know that it was a game, it was just next level tough. And I was dealing with injuries on injuries during that training. Every runner's injury that you could possibly have, I had, and was just trying to get through it. And I remember I was one of, I think, three women on this whole course.
Epic, yeah.
And so we had our own bathroom.
Nice.
That was like the only place.
Yes.
Yeah, the only place that I could ever be alone
yeah.
and away from the guys.
Amazing.
The bathroom. And I remember probably during the middle of that course at some point, and my body was just done. I was so tired. I remember like laying on the bathroom floor and just crying, just like ugly crying for probably 10 minutes. And this was such a pivotal like moment for me because, when we're younger, when things are hard, we can quit them.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to kind of.
This is too much for me, and then we can find justification in our brain for why that is an appropriate action, right? Pretty easily.
Yeah.
But this, laying there crying on the floor and then looking around and being like, well, that didn't change anything,
Oh, goodness.
Nobody's coming to save me. Having to pick yourself up off the floor and then keep going because you don't really have an option to quit was like really liberating, really freeing.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
That was like early 20s.
Yeah.
You got to have that.
20 years old.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And had
That's
been, away from home for the first time. And
true. I guess coming from a small town, too, it might be a bit more of a...
Yeah. And that was like the first thing that I had done. Mm-hmm. The first time that I left home was on my own for months because it was, going from basic training to... base Borden where you're awaiting training and then on to the next thing and you're just kind of like a gypsy, like living out of your duffel bag and going from base to base doing all these different trainings and then at that age having to feel like that kind of challenge and you're on your own in the world,
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
It's pretty freaky.
Yeah.
Whoa. What was your as liberating as that experience was, and kind of moving forward? What was your what? Take us through after that. What was your kind of mental process after that? Like, was that the like, okay, I know I'm not going to go overseas, or is that the like, what was the rest of the career look like in the like the military career look like?
It was a really interesting time. So I joined in 2003, and this was right. So once I was finished training and I received my first posting to Edmonton, was where I was based. We basically started workup training for Afghanistan right away when I was posted.
Oh, no kidding.
And this was the time when Canada was starting to send more troops into Afghanistan.
Right.
And our mission there was also transitioning from a peacekeeping mission to actual offensive operations with
take over.
Multinational task force. And this was the first time that Canada's role had been something other than peacekeeping in
no kidding.
years. And so I think about my poor mom and what I put her through during that stage of life, and like, oh, my daughter's joining the military, I'm so proud of her, to now she's training to go overseas, and this is a different ball game. This is not just going and handing out humanitarian aid. This is like offensive operations. And
epic.
Yeah, so I spent a year in workup training in Edmonton, preparing to deploy, and then 9 months in Kandahar.
Come on.
And
that's cool.
Yeah,
but also,
it was
terrifying.
It was all sorts of things. It was terrifying. It was crazy. It was just adjusting to like sleeping in a tent in the desert for 9 months, doing night shift. Like everything about it is not real life, right? It's so upside down from what you're used to in Canada.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. And they, when did it, like, what was it like, and what did it feel like when, because you had to have imagined at this point you were going to go overseas. But, like, did you at any point, like, what was that first initial, like, oh, shit, I'm actually going? Like, when did that kind of hit?
I feel like it was when we touched down on the runway in Afghanistan, and we actually got off the plane.
Oh, no kidding.
Was like that out of body experience where you're like, because part of workup training is you have criteria to meet and all of these phases of training, but you are never told you are 100% going on this mission.
Right.
So it's like you are a potential for this mission, and you just treat it that way the whole time that you're training. Like,
okay, so you stay prepared, I guess.
Yes. And at any given point, if, say there's a change in your health status or something like that, and I had someone that I worked with, I can't remember what it was, but it was something like, he was prepared to go and he was doing all the training, and then he had like kidney stones or something like that before we deployed. And so they wouldn't deploy him. Whoa. Because if you have any, outstanding medical issues that could be a potentially harmful thing while you're over there,
right, then
they won't send you. So
okay, interesting.
So you're just sitting in this waiting mode where you're like, I think I'm going to be a part of this, but I'm not 100% sure. So it wasn't really until like touching down, the doors open on the Herc, and you get out of this aircraft and you're in the desert, that it really like, okay.
It's like, oh, I guess we're here.
This is happening. Yeah.
What? Oh man, you said, what were those, you said 9 months you spent there? Mm-hmm. What were the 9 months like? That sounds, like, paint that picture for us.
It was all sorts of challenging for multiple reasons. I mean, obviously being away from your family, being isolated, communications at the time.
Oh, true, eh? It's
You
like
know,
in the early 2000s.
yeah, I didn't even like have a cell phone really that I carried with me back then, you know.
Yeah.
As far as getting in touch with your family when you're over there, it was, you know, waiting in line to use the phone and, you know, accounting for the time change, calling them and hoping that they were home. And
I have a question. Was
yeah.
the phone one of those like you put the finger in the hole and you kind of go like this, or was it like you just slip a
No,
quarter in?
no, it was like, it was super awkward. It was, a lot of the buildings over there on the base were temporary structures, so they were made out of sea containers or like
Oh, okay, yeah.
ATCO trailers.
Oh, sick.
So picture an ATCO trailer
Yeah.
with all of these tables and dividers, and there's a phone, you know, and then there's a person right beside you talking to their parent or their, you know, family member. So you're all jammed into this little space.
Yeah.
Sitting there, you know, in your
Yeah.
little cubicle having your
Hi, Mom.
conversation.
How's
Yeah.
the dog?
Yeah.
Come on. Oh
Yeah.
man, yeah, that's I can only imagine going in like the span of a year or a year or two, right? Going from basic training to like, oh, I've never left Trident to now it's we're in the Middle East. It's
Yeah.
like that's crazy.
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome though. Like that's cool. Cool, I guess I can imagine it being interesting and cool looking back and seeing like how much of an impact that might have had on you and what you would have taken away from that. Like that's a crazy,
Yeah,
crazy
and
9 months.
I think about the countries that have like mandatory enlistment in the military, and I can see why. Like,
Yeah.
I can see why there's value in that, because
Oh.
a lot of the kids, like a lot of the people that I was in basic training with, were just kids. There was one guy that he was actually 17. His parents had to sign for him to actually join before he was 18.
Did he just want to do it? Do you
Yeah,
remember?
just was so gung
sick.
ho.
Sick, I love it.
He had like wanted to
Yeah.
be in the military his whole life, and he was infantry, and he was just ready to go. And
Talk about expectations.
but these kids were like, so if we go back to basic
Yeah.
training and what was required of us, like these kids had never done their own laundry, and now they're having to, you know, have these immaculate inspections in their
Yeah.
bunk every day, and they're having to iron their shirts. I remember I would iron shirts for people.
Come
like
on,
we
yeah, I
we
was
would
gonna say.
barter. Yeah, because these
No
17-year-old kids had never ironed a shirt
Yeah.
before, and they had no idea how. And so it's like, I'll shine your boots if you iron my shirt. I'm like, deal.
Say no more, yeah.
But you go from that, like literally having to ask how to use a laundry machine, to fast forward maybe a year and a half later, and you're
Jeez,
overseas
eh?
in a war zone.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's quite the shift. Why'd you end up leaving? Like, was just the deployment 9 months, or what was like? Take us through the ending of that.
Yeah. So, after my after my deployment, there was so much that happened there, and I started to see that there was a kind of a pattern where people would not necessarily love what they did in the military,
Right.
but if you think about joining the army at 19, and then you can put 20 years in and have a pension and then do whatever you want, that's really attractive for people, right? So they tell themselves, especially when you're approaching the 10-year mark, like, I'm halfway to a full pension.
Yeah, especially if they're only 27
Yeah.
at that point, like 17 or
Exactly.
or like 30, and you're like, oh, this isn't that bad.
So I saw, especially in my trade, I was in the communications trade,
Nice.
and so like a radio operator.
Sick.
And I noticed that most of the people that had been in my trade for any given amount of time, they didn't love what they did, but they were on their way to their pension, so they just stuck it out, and and they were jaded and cynical and cranky, and I saw
so
that.
Yeah.
And I saw that, like, the people that surrounded me didn't love what they did.
Right.
And I excelled in the military. I did well.
Nice.
I'm a hard worker.
Yeah.
I like pushing myself. Yeah. But at some point, I think during the deployment, I recognized that just because I was good at it didn't mean it was good for me. You know?
That's a big distinction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, is this environment really going to be conducive to me being my best self,
like
living my best life long term? Yeah. And I remember when I was overseas, I was planning my exit. Like, I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, and and I spoke to this one officer that had been in. He was probably the oldest officer that we had at the time. He'd been in the military for years, decades.
Nice. He's got a pension.
Oh yeah. He was he could have sailed that ship years ago, years before, but he he was still there. And we were chatting the one night. Epic. And I told him, I was like, maybe I'll be a cop, because the Edmonton police at the time was offering like direct entry for military veterans to transition to the police force.
Oh, that's a sick opportunity.
Because they needed people,
that's
so I'm
cool.
like, yeah, maybe I'll be a cop. And he just kind of looked at me and he was like, why would you want to do that? And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, your personality, like, you are so bubbly and so happy. If you become a cop, you will be basically spending your time with this population of people that are the worst. And, like, what do you think that's going to do to you? Oh. And he just, like, the way he was just so direct with me, and the way he said that, I was like, oh, like, you're right. And I never thought about that. I was just thinking about, it pays well, that kind of thing.
I think the benefit of it for sure.
Yeah.
Smooth transition.
Yeah. I'm basically trained for this transition, and he was like, that's gonna, like, kill your spirit. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
And I completely listened to him. I was like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for, for saying that. So, I put in for my release when we got back to Canada. I had made my decision that this was not the environment I wanted to stay in, and 6 months later it was processed, and I was a civilian again. Gave all my gear back and was back in the world.
Damn. Yeah. What was that? Was it difficult coming back into the world? The real world, we call it? Well, real world.
It's weird. It's like, so when you're in the military, everything is like, they have their own language, they have their own lingo. Everything is like this short-term, kind of speak. And you're surrounded by military people. You hang out after work and have beers with military people. Like, that's your whole life, basically. And then you leave, and it's like, you're back to the world of opportunity, and like, what am I going to do next? And it was bizarre. It was weird. It took me a while to figure out kind of what I wanted to do, and I tried some different things and dabbled
no kidding.
in some different areas, because at that point I was 23, and
jeez, so young too.
That,
man,
I felt like I had already lived and this is why I say I feel like my life is in chunks of different lives, because I felt like I had already lived this very crazy life for those 4.5 years, and now I'm still only 23, and like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me that you had recognized, like, your pattern recognition skill in human behavior came back the same way as you saw it during that year off. You saw people running at the mill, and you're like, oof, they're just starting. Mm-hmm. And you were so this way, and it, like, to what the supervisor in the military was telling you, is like, I feel it crushed those people's spirits a bit, or maybe not crushed right away, but like chipped away at them day by day.
Yes, so. And I felt that was intentional. The military kind of complex, once they get you in and they spend all this money to train you, they want to keep you.
Makes sense.
As long as possible. So there was an element of, like, don't think this was explicitly said, but there was an element of, well, what are you going to do,
resistance
out there? Yeah,
yeah.
what are you going to do when you get out there? Like, we look after you here, and that kind of
oh, like you have no opportunities yet. We have opportunities here.
yes.
And it's oh, weird.
Yeah, the
Makes
real
sense,
world is
yeah.
hard. You should just stay here with us.
Yeah, it's like go back to Canada. Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, there's like a what's the word I'm looking for? They want you to be dependent on them. I felt.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because, like I said, they've put all this money and time into training you, and
Yeah.
now they want to, utilize your skills and.
For sure.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Yeah. I can imagine going about it to leave though. That's probably not the most. That's tricky. That's a tricky thing to navigate.
Yeah.
So once you did kind of, were you just like immediately, okay, I'm putting in my my leave. I want to release back in the world. Did you have kind of steps you want to do or things, or just kind of like, let's go back and see, or was it like go back to the beginning and try it, and like take us through that a bit?
Well, it brought me back to, okay, like, what do I really want to do? What are my skills? Yeah. Which I just felt like it came back to where I was in high school, where there was that analytical, logical side of my brain, and then the artistic one. And I considered going into nursing, like going back to school and taking nursing, because there was always this idea of wanting to help in some way, being interested in health and wanting to help. But then ultimately I made the decision to start tattooing.
Yeah.
And that was my husband at the time. We were a military couple.
Oh, no way.
And he was the one that, he was still in the military after I released, and he was the one that pushed me toward tattooing. He's like you're so good at art, and like you should do this, and you can practice on me.
Oh, nice. You're like, okay, well, I mean, did you? I'm curious though. With that, were you like always sketching and stuff, like when you had free time? I guess. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's not like I only did it in high school and then left. Like you were always. No,
yeah, it was always.
Not even dealing with sketching. Yeah.
Especially when I was in the military, kind of when we did have downtime. I was drawing, listening to music and drawing.
Oh, nice.
And or when I was on shift, doing a radio shift, and there was downtime, I was always doodling, and so, and I actually had an opportunity. This was probably the highlight of my deployment, where our Canadian general, David Fraser, he noticed that I was an artist, and he asked if I would do some murals on the base in Kandahar. Yeah. So
that's a wild opportunity.
Yeah, and this was part of making this decision to leave. So he had a 8-foot tall concrete slab poured for me in the courtyard of the headquarters building.
Poured for you? Like it was just like, we need a mural.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Man. There was one existing that when the Americans were in charge over there, we had taken over from them. Nice. And they had a mural in the courtyard, and he was like, I want to do a Canadian mural in the courtyard, and he had found out that I was an artist, so he asked if I would do this painting, and basically said, I'll take you off all your other duties, and this will be your primary focus until it's done.
Come on.
So that's pretty attractive.
Yeah.
But given the temperature in Afghanistan at the time, which was...
It's probably hot.
Oh my God. During the day... Desert. It was 50 degrees.
Yeah, of course.
Day. So this big concrete slab, 8 feet by 8 feet, I couldn't do it during the day. I would literally put my brush in paint and pull it out, and it would dry on the brush immediately because it was that hot. So I had to do it at night by spotlights. We set up all these spotlights, and I would just night shift paint. What? And I think it took about 3 weeks to complete. And while I was doing that, officers and other people that were working in the headquarters at night would come outside for smoke breaks and stand there and watch me paint and chat with me. And
Oh, so you weren't like just in
on
solitude,
my own,
in the middle of the desert.
I had visitors.
That's cool.
But night after night, people would come out and they'd watch me paint and they'd say, "If you can do this, why are you here?
Oh, come on.
Like, if you have this skill set,
yeah,
why are you a grunt in the army?"
Yeah.
And hearing that over and over again starts to like click, right?
Yeah.
You know, I started to become aware of my other skill sets and like, okay, I can do a lot more than what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's this old fashioned, I've been having this, it's funny though, because Amanda, I've been having these similar conversations with different friends of mine that we all talk about, oh, well, some of them are in this or they don't want to do the race or the rap, whatever it might be, right? And what I think it is too is I think we all have a specific set of skills and we like honing into them. But I think we're at a stage or getting past the stage now, thankfully, where you might not need to, like, you could do your, lack of a term, like the 9 to 5 or the whole like career they call it, but you could also have, well, what if I'm really good at arts? Okay, well, how could I find a way to like do this, make money, and also do more of what I love to do, right? One of the skills, and develop it, right? So then hearing that probably, that turns into tattooing and other stuff, and then it's like maybe, oh, in the communication, well, I'd also start this, but I want to help people. It's like, okay, well, I have all these skills that I enjoy developing. How can I kind of monetize each instead of what's one thing I want to do and let's do it for 60 years.
Yeah.
Right? So it's cool to see that it's like, oh, people were at least pushing you in that direction as well. Like they were supporting it. Like that's cool to hear that people are all for it too.
And I feel there is exactly what you're talking about. I feel there is like a collective shift in how people are looking at how, like what they're doing with their lives and how they're spending their time.
Yeah.
Because that 9 to 5 grind that we were conditioned when we were kids to believe was our future.
Right.
I think we're starting to like question that and
a little bit,
and say like that's a lot of hours of my day. That's a lot of my life that I'm going to be giving to this thing.
Yeah.
And is that necessarily how I want to spend those hours? Like, is that, like you said, is that going to lead me to grow into my best self and develop these skills and enjoy my time? Yeah. And that trade-off is huge. Like, that's the majority of your life.
Oh, 1,000%.
So, starting to, and I look back now and I realize kind of like that realization I had in the military where like, okay, I am good at this, I excel at this, but this is not good for me.
Right.
It's just taking the time to reflect and be like, okay, I have all of these skills. What else can I do? And what would be good for me? You know, what's going to help my personal growth and make me the happiest? And I feel like life is just a journey of that, you know, trying to like lean into those, being brave and leaning into those unknowns a little bit more rather than just settling with the status quo.
Like I got one of the 5 things, because then you're really only fulfilling, say you have like 5 skills or 5 passions or hobbies, whatever you want to call them, that you're good at, that you want to pursue, but you only can like, oh, you have to only do the one. It's like, well then now, like I was saying, it's like now my spirit, bit of my soul is kind of being removed. And now there's always something that I'm like, I feel I'm missing something. I don't have as much energy every day for this. Whereas now it's like, oh, well, I can do all these different things and enjoy it. And like you said, we're in that time where we're starting to question it a bit now. We're starting to pick things and we're like, oh, well, I ask myself, like I kind of tell people the question to ask yourself is not like, what do I want to do? But it's like, what do you enjoy learning about? And then kind of go do that a bit more of. And then, oh, I might have no patience for one thing, or to get better or learn about like music production specifically. And I know because I was just talking to a friend of mine about this, because he's like trying to learn like music production and DJ. I don't care about different sound waves and stuff. But when you talk about video, it's a very different thing. Like different write speeds of SD cards, and there's all these things, and I'm like, oh, but why are the pixels, like why is everything, like angles of filming cinematic and stuff, or that stuff's interesting to me, right? And storytelling. So it's like, I'm going to dive in and learn more about that instead of what do I want to do? Well, I don't know what I want to do because like you didn't know, I didn't know, and then it's like, oh, I didn't know, like I didn't maybe want to do podcasting at 17. But now I'm like, oh, this is really awesome. Like doing, like, you know, having this as a thing to do, and then picking things that you like learning more about, and then just developing those along with the things you enjoy doing, I think is the best way I've found to almost look at it if you have no answers.
Yeah.
Right.
Like following the curiosity and the
that's a good way to
things
put
that
it.
light you up. Because I think that those things are not accidents.
Right.
The things that you get excited about and that really interest you, follow those. And even if you don't, there's a thing that I see often, and I've fallen into this trap too, where you don't want to take a step forward until you see the whole path.
Right.
You want, our brains, our logical brains want to understand where we're going before we start in a direction, right?
Yeah.
You want to see the whole staircase before you decide to take that first step. I don't really think that's how it works. I think that you just need to take a step in a direction, and then the path will, step by step unfold for you, and just keep choosing the path of what lights you up, of you know, what excites you and what you're curious about. And it also takes the pressure off.
It does.
When you do life that way. You're like, okay, I'm going to, you know what, this feels good right now. I'm going to move in this direction. And,
yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Interesting. So, looking kind of back on that a bit now as well, do you have, like, you talked kind of about, like, oh, I want to know what helped, and then I went into tattooing, and I wanted to help people, and then how did you start tattooing? Like, what was that kind of, what did that look like? Did you, like, start a portfolio and just build up, or did you just showcase what you were able to do, or did you, like, develop the, like, tattooing school? Take me through that a bit.
So,
curious for anybody who'd want to
at the
experience
time,
that.
my husband was fairly heavily tattooed, and he had kind of a buddy that was his, like, go-to artist.
Nice.
And, he said to me, you should get into tattooing. And I had every excuse. I'm like, well, maybe, yeah. I don't really know. We were living in Edmonton at the time. I don't really know any tattoo artists here. And, it's hard to get an apprenticeship, and, like, I had every excuse. And he just decided to take it upon himself to talk to his guy and say, if I wanted to get Amanda set up, what should I buy? And he told him, and he just bought it all. And so all of this gear showed up at the house, and he was like, there, now you can just start.
Excuses.
No excuses. Yeah, he took all the excuses away from me. And
just rolls up his sleeve.
Basically, that was it. Nice. And turns out, and one of the other excuses I had was, well, who's going to let me practice on them? Like, who's going to turns out lots of people.
No kidding, really?
Especially ex-military people.
Really?
Yeah, you offer them a free tattoo and they're all over it. They're like, I've seen you draw. I trust you.
Oh, cool.
So that's how it started. Was I was mostly self-taught, and it was practicing on military friends. And I did that for a few years. We ended up moving to Ottawa, being posted to Ottawa, and made some more friends there who let me tattoo them. And I had just had my daughter, and so she was just a baby, and
practicing on her.
Yeah. I was working part-time, and just tattooing on weekends and evenings for a while.
Cool.
Ultimately ended up moving back to Dryden, and that's when I started actually tattooing full-time, and opened my shop, and everything just really took off. It was people there knew me back home.
Sure.
People knew me. They knew that I was artistic, and so I decided to open my own shop, and I started advertising. And actually, it was, I think, I had found a location, put up signage, and people started calling to book appointments before I was even open. As soon as I got the sign up there.
Well, that's nice. It, like, reassures what you're doing. Is like,
I was like, I don't know if I'm going to, have enough people to make this work, but
Were you the only like tattoo place in Dryden, or was there like
there was
maybe
one other shop at the time, yeah, and
Nice.
yeah, and so I was, before I even opened my doors, I was booked for the first 3 weeks straight, and I was like, okay, this is gonna be a thing. This is,
Yeah, this is great.
yeah.
I haven't even opened my doors yet.
Haven't even
That's
opened my
cool.
doors yet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
So it was, the focus for the first couple of years was just, working as much as possible, building a clientele, building a strong reputation, and yeah, it was just go, go, go.
Why did you move? What made the decision to move to Dryden, like back from Ottawa? Because that's a big shift.
Yeah.
I've lived in Ottawa, so I'm like, oof, that's a.
I know. Ottawa was beautiful. I was only there for 2 years, but my husband and I divorced, and I had a 2-year-old.
I was gonna say probably like I thought it would be baby related.
Yeah.
Like infant related. Baby, infant. Are they a baby at 2?
Toddler-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Know
So
this.
all of my family was still back in Dryden.
Perfect,
I had no family in Ottawa, so it was primarily that, just to be
very smart decision. Yeah.
around family and raise my daughter around family. And the tattoo shop, just once I made the decision, it just unfolded. Everything just came together.
Nice.
And
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. You're able to support like that too, and awesome. Not like, oh, I get a couple clients here, but it's like I'm packed.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And it was like booked for 6 months straight for years, for several years.
Good.
Yeah, it was great. I was busy, and then I got sick. So this was in my first 2 years of business, and my first couple years of motherhood. I started not feeling good, and started having some digestive issues, and just kind of like little symptoms that started popping up, and went to my doctor, and it's a very slow process. It was like, oh well, we'll test you for this, and so wait for 6 months before you can go for this certain test. And oh well, no, that came back inconclusive, so we'll send you for this test, so wait, and we'll send you to this specialist, wait. It took me
Classic.
it took me almost between 2 and 3 years before I actually had a diagnosis, and I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is a form of inflammatory bowel disease, similar to Crohn's disease. And in that time span, what started as very kind of minor symptoms just got worse and worse and worse, to the point where I was avoiding food pretty much.
Yeah, you had no idea. You don't want to go through that.
Yeah, my digestive system was so shot that I would basically not eat all day, because that's what I needed to do to be able to work, to be able to support my daughter and my business. And it was like, okay, I'll just not eat all day, and then I'll eat dinner, and then because then I would be in so much pain after I ate.
Crazy.
And that's that was so hard, because not only was I a first-time mom, but I was trying to run this business, and then my body felt like it was rebelling against me, and I was pissed off.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I felt like I had been gypped. I was like, I do everything right. Like, I exercise, I eat well, like
I'm supporting my kid, I'm trying to get this business, I'm helping people to...
I don't deserve this. Why am I sick?
That's frustrating.
And I had absolutely zero awareness at the time that it could be related to my military service, that it could be related to the trauma I had experienced and the chronic stress that I had experienced. That was not even
it didn't really... Didn't register, right?
Didn't register in my brain at the time. And so I was managing my illness the way the doctors told me to. They basically said, this is what you have. There's no cure. You're going to have it for the rest of your life. You're going to have to be on medication forever.
I hate the term medication.
Rough and it was hard for me to accept that. Like, what do you mean? Like, And as a single mom, self-employed, no health insurance, paying $300 a month for these medications that were only marginally making me feel a little bit better. I was like, this is like, there's got to be a better way.
Has to be.
I refused to accept that was going to be the rest of my life. Although I did go through a period of time where I kind of just felt sorry for myself.
That's gonna happen, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and then eventually I got hooked up with a naturopathic doctor. Amazing. And she changed my life.
No kidding, eh?
3 weeks of working with her. And
where'd you meet her? How'd you?
Through my mom. So she was a new practicing naturopath in Kenora, which is close to Dryden. And
Northern Ontario, way up north. For
the part I like to call it the part of Ontario that people don't know exists.
Yeah.
That part. Yeah. It was my mom that heard about her, and she was the only, I think, or maybe one of 2 naturopaths in the area at the time, and she was like, "Why don't you just give it a shot?
Yeah.
What do you have to lose at this point?
Really.
Pay $200 to go see her, and maybe she can help you."
It's less than your medication.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
She had put me on a elimination diet to remove any possible triggers in my diet that were making me feel worse, and recommended a couple supplements and some lifestyle changes. And I was like, I'll do anything. At this point, like, I feel so awful. I'll do anything you tell me.
Amazing.
And made a few changes, and within 3 weeks I felt better than I had in 3 years.
What?
And I was like, okay, like,
yeah, there's something here.
Yeah. And people need to know about this.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because I've been suffering and just getting worse through this process of waiting for doctors, waiting for tests, and being told the only thing you can do is medication.
Which is forever. Oh, and it also costs money. Yeah. Healthy people don't, they don't pay the bills for doctors. Right?
No.
Like, sick people are how doctors get paid.
Yeah, and I had done a little bit of research on my own and had gone to see my specialist in Winnipeg and asked him straight up. I was like, I've read some stuff online that people have said that they felt better once they changed their diet. Is there any truth to that? And he laughed in my face
Of course he did.
and said, there's no studies to support that. I remember that was his exact words. There is no studies to support that dietary change will make you feel better. And that did not...
That's absurd.
It is absurd. It didn't make sense in my brain. I was like, okay, I have a disease of the digestive system.
Yeah. Food goes through this.
Food goes in my digestive system. How does this
That's
help
so
me
frustrating.
make this make sense, And so that was the last time I ever saw him.
Yeah, no kidding.
I didn't go back to that guy.
No, you get along really well with my my friend. You might know him, might not. Like, you'd have a lot of mutual friends. But my friend Michael Brovac, because he's basically he was a sick kid in the hospital for 18 years, and then met somebody with like who suggested similar treatments to like what the naturopath suggested for you, and it completely changed everything from food was different to this to like, and then after the doctors were like, okay, you're going to be on this medication forever, and then we'll check up, and then at the end of a year they go back, and Michael's like made such a drastic change. This is the craziest part about the story, so I'm trying to keep it short for you, but he basically doesn't take the medication the doctor's prescribing, and is only making these lifestyle choices, right, or changes to the diets, right, similar but different to what you did. And then the doctor's like, oh man, these medications are really working for him. Michael's like, I haven't taken them since I saw you last year, doc. Like, I haven't taken. And then they're like, parents are freaking out because they're getting more expensive, right? And they're like, oh, we need to put on this. It's like, mom, dad, I gotta tell you guys something. I haven't been taking these medications for 2 years.
Yeah.
They're like, oh. And it's like, you can see, I went to his house in Hamilton when we shot something for him, and he was like, you could see in their cupboard, they have like all the medication that's still there. And I mean, like, every pill and it's the craziest amount of times I can only imagine it's more for you. But I remember, I had like a staph infection or something, and I had to take 2 pills 4 times a day for 7 days straight, and it was
Yeah.
the most mind numbing, like blow my head off type. I was like, oh, I gotta go again. It's 8, 10, 2, 4, like what are 6? What are we doing? I was
Yeah.
like, this is crazy. I can only imagine it being like 10x for both of you guys. So I was like, man. But yeah, he had a very similar experience with doctors, and anytime I'm like, hey man, medication, what do you think about it? He's like, do you have 3 hours? Yeah, actually. So that's cool though. That what type of lifestyle and like what type of lifestyle changes? Like what was something that you didn't expect would make that much of a difference?
Well, this is the interesting part. So my naturopath
Yeah.
was amazing. First of all, she spent an hour and a half with me on my first visit.
Oh geez.
And she asked me to make a food log for 7 days before
Nice.
I saw her. She also asked me to make a list of all of the significant events in my life for 10 years before this. And I'm like, okay.
Pretty specific.
You don't realize how much chronic stress affects you. And my definition of stress is, there can be good stressors in your life. Things like getting married, buying a house,
Yeah.
moving. These are positive things in our life, but they're stressful. They're big changes on our body, right? And our mind.
Oh geez, never would have thought of that.
Yeah, and I didn't make this connection until I make this list. And my list looked like graduate high school, join the military,
Yeah.
move across the country, spend a year in these
Yeah.
hellish trainings,
Crazy conditions.
go to Afghanistan, come home from Afghanistan with an anxiety disorder,
Yeah.
leave the military, try some new careers, move across the country, have a baby, get divorced, move across the country again, start a business. Like,
Come on.
just making this list was like, okay, wait, how come
I'm
I haven't
stressed
seen
for making
this?
this
Yeah.
list. Yeah, just hearing it. Oh my goodness.
Was like, oh, wait a second, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot for anybody. That's a lot for your body.
Yeah.
Honestly, the connection, though, before that didn't exist in my mind. It didn't exist that my physical health
Yeah.
could be suffering because of all of the things I had went through.
Yeah.
So that was number one big mind-blowing moment.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
Number two was when I left her office, she said, I promise we will have you feeling better soon. And just saying that made me break down in tears because
Yeah.
my visits with the doctors were, this is a life sentence.
Yeah.
You have a disease. You're going to be sick for the rest of your life. Take these medications.
Zero sign of hope.
They took away all of
Yeah.
my hope. All of my hope. And
Wow.
that in itself, that process of here's your diagnosis, here's your prognosis, this is what's in store for you. It removes all hope. It can send, I firmly believe that can just send people into a deep depression.
Yeah, no
Because
kidding.
you're like, oh, okay. Like, I'm looking at potentially having a portion of my colon removed and having a colostomy bag at 25. Cool.
Yeah.
That's great, you know?
That's exciting.
So to talk to this naturopath and have her say, I promise we'll have you feeling better soon, was everything to me. It was like, glimmer of hope. Things
Yeah.
can change. Wow. Okay. Amazing. So then she gives me this treatment plan, which included dietary change,
Nice.
included a few supplements to help. Not anything crazy,
No,
just
yeah.
to support my body, some B vitamins, some things
Nice.
I'd been lacking.
Yeah.
And then for the lifestyle changes, like she recommended meditation. She recommended stress management being a priority, like
Wow.
sleeping more,
Yeah.
meditating. And of course, like anybody else who sees that on a piece of paper, it's like, oh, skip over that.
Yeah.
I'm just
It's
going to go
easy to
right
do.
into the diet. I'm going to
Yeah.
go right into the doing things.
Right.
Right. So fast forward a few years and it finally clicked that the stress management part, the meditation part, the sleeping more, the moving your body, that's the real medicine. That's how we support our bodies and our minds. And it's not just the diet protocol or the supplements or any of that doing stuff.
Yeah. It's funny you mention that, because every single time I've done a meditation, which, I mean, I can count how many times I've done a good quality meditation on both my hands. That's it,
Yeah.
right? Less than 10. Easy, Mando, right? So I'm like, but every time now that you say that thing, I'm thinking back and I'm like, every single time I've done one, I've always felt not a bit better, or not the same, or not less worse, but substantially better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, crazy. They're always guided. Like, I have like a bunch of different friends that kind of like do it, or they need to do it for like similar, or like
Yeah.
not such maybe not as in much of an extreme case, but like they're going through stressful things, so they need to, right, they're using it as that tool.
Yeah.
And so in order to support them, I would also do it with them. And so in doing that, I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing it to make, because I know if I say, come on, man, we'll just do it, because it's easy, like you said, it's on their list, they'll cross it off.
Yeah.
For what to do. And I'm like, no, man, like, did you do meditation today? No. All right, well, like, I got 5 minutes. They're like, yeah, okay. And then after they're like, you know what, I needed that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh.
And it's
I'm
always,
like, I did too.
it's always when you think you don't have time that you
True.
actually should do it. That's
Right.
when you need to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you need the most then.
Because when, like, life is busy, and managing a business, being a parent, managing an illness, like, all of these things take so much energy, and they are so taxing on our brains, on our mental health, and I'm just so tired of the medical system treating everything independently.
Yeah.
Treating our mental health separate from our physical health. We are not these separate floating, pieces.
Right.
We are a system. Our body is a system, and all of these things work together. So it's not one or the other.
Yeah.
It's this and this and and this, and that's it's taken me years to learn that, but
Yeah.
it's all equally important in my mind.
I completely agree. And there's this thing that it's funny, I was having a similar conversation with my last guest about, because he went from like, he decided to like cut out drinking completely. He's about 4 years, like relatively sober, like competitive bodybuilder, just only eats like really clean. And he's like, dude, I don't even know what depression or feeling bad is. Because the whole thing, and I was talking to another friend of mine, Pat, about this, and because he's on his way for a weightlifting competition, like he calls like a couple people on the road, and so he called me, and we were talking the whole time about how people miss the fact that eating clean, exercise, like meditation, all those things, it's not just so much that it's for your body as it is also for your mind. But why do we separate the two? Like, oh, mental and physical health. They're the same thing. Because
Yes.
if your mental health is good, chances are your physical health is good.
Yeah.
If your physical health is good, your mental health is probably going to be pretty good too, right? If you're doing, you would imagine, right? Obviously, there's extreme cases we can argue for. But talking, if we're just generalizing with majority, I'd say, of people, I'm curious what your 5 cents is on this, but I think in majority of people, seeing that if you just eat healthier, you do these things to kind of fight the stress that you might be taking on, right?
Yes.
Make those adjustments. They'll live a lot more, like their brain will be, like their mental health will be clearer, like more clean and more clear, and their physical health will be much better as well, right?
Absolutely. And when you start living this way, where you put, like where I'm at now, where the things I put in my body are very deliberate each day. Like it's clean, whole food. And
super intentional with everything.
Super intentional, because it is not only fuel, but it's driving exactly what you say. It drives your mood. It drives your energy. And when you start eating, and I'm sure your friend that you're talking about will attest to this, when you start eating in this way, and then you do have something out of the norm, you go out and have a few drinks with friends.
Yep.
I can feel that in my mood for 2 to 3 days afterward. I feel my mood is
no
just
kidding.
a little bit dampened. It's like my sleep isn't as good that night. Maybe I have a little bit of pain in my body. There's inflammation there, but I can feel it. Like it's clear as day. And I think that if you are in the weeds, if you're in a place where your mental health is suffering, your physical health is suffering, you're not being intentional with your diet, you're not moving your body, you're not doing meditations, you're caught up in stress. Everything is so murky. You don't know what is driving what, you know? So, and one of the traps that I see with, especially nowadays, people identifying with their illness or their mental illness as this is who I am.
I appreciate you saying that.
Oh,
yeah.
It is not who you are.
Grinds my gears.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel the exact same way.
Super frustrating.
Yeah.
Because you want to help them, but they're not gonna.
No, and if you have taken that on as a trait in your personality as who you are, then that is what you are creating in your life. Like you have fully subscribed, you know?
Jeez, I'm thinking of people now. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. And I see it with like my daughter's generation.
True.
More so than like my generation. It seems to be, and I think I understand it. I say as much as it grinds my gears too, I understand, and I look at it not from a place of judgment, but from a place of empathy.
Yeah.
And people want to feel understood. Yeah. People want to belong. So if they're struggling with something and then a doctor says, oh, you have anxiety. Go, oh, I have anxiety. Yeah. Okay, now I belong to this group. And that's who I am.
Right.
And maybe they find a little bit of support in that. Maybe they find some belonging because now they've got this name to go along with what they've been feeling. But it's a trap. Like it doesn't get you anywhere.
Right.
If you believe that's who you are, if you believe that's your identity, it's these things are stages that we're meant to move through, but they don't define like who we are.
No, and it's funny you mentioned that, because speaking of stages, those were the stages that I went through in the last, like, let's say 3 years, 2 to 3 years. I've been like working pretty hard at this, where I went from being in that stage of judgment to being, and not so much like but more just judging the, like, how can you just identify with that, like just being on the judgment side, to now my whole thing has been trying to understand and get more of an understanding and empathize with people so that I can completely like use that to almost as a, like you said, just make them feel like they've been heard, they've been understood. But the thing that I conflict with that in my brain, and maybe you can help me kind of or work through this or work like around this, is when it comes to understanding, in order to help people, you need to, right? Like we need to understand what they're going through to some degree, but nobody really can fully comprehend what anybody's really going through, because we're all unique, right? So we're all separate individuals. So I'm met with sometimes with people I'm thinking about with the pushback of, well, you don't understand what I'm going through.
Yeah.
How do you know? And I'm like, well, I'm not depressed. How can I not help you?
Right.
It's like, well, you don't know what I'm going through. It's like, but that should be, is there not something to be said for the people too, though, that aren't going or haven't had to go or haven't gone through a crazy like type of mental health or mental illness type struggle, that is like, I'm able to create steps, or I've been grateful enough personally to create steps and put steps in place so that I can prevent these things, because I've just known the healthy lifestyle from sooner, right? And known how to manage stress sooner, right? Like it's between all the saunas growing up, like all the plunging, like understanding what is good stress and what's bad stress.
Yeah.
Although, like you said, it's like it's also both.
It's all stress.
Yeah. So it's like trying to mitigate that as much and like keep a calm mental state. Is there not something to, like, how do we navigate that? Sorry. Like, how do we navigate that, trying to figure out understanding people as well as like, okay, well, what if they're just shut off to being understood? Like,
yeah,
right?
Which can be a stage.
It's very tough to empathize with those people.
100%.
I find, at least, as a struggle for me.
100%. And I think that sometimes that is a stage you go through. I remember when I was first diagnosed with my illness, because you would consider IBD as like an invisible illness. It's something that doesn't really show on the inside or on the outside, I should say. To feel like you're internally going through hell, but you still look like you on the outside is a tough struggle. And I went through that for a while, being like, well, you don't understand. You don't understand how hard it is to get out of bed some days. You don't understand how much I want to just lay in a fetal position because my guts are like on fire. You don't understand. And that stage, I would say, is like a lot of feeling sorry for yourself and wanting to be different. Wanting to, it's like you're identifying with the struggle, and you want to almost use that. It's arguing for your limitations, is what it is.
Whoa.
You know? And I see people doing that all the time, clients that I deal with. Where a person will say, well, you don't know how hard it is. And this is something that I think especially affects people that come from diverse, like, socioeconomic backgrounds. You know, you grew up in a really shitty area, in poverty, with no access to these, you know, positive lifestyle things. Therefore, it justifies where I am right now in my life because I grew up this way. You know, that sort of thing. And people aren't always ready to hear that.
Nope.
Like, you're arguing for your limitations.
Yeah.
And in arguing for your limitations, you're keeping yourself exactly where you are. And I understand it because I've been there. I understand that you're pissed off. You're pissed off about this shitty hand that was dealt to you. But in staying there, that's what you're perpetuating in your life. You're choosing not to change because you're sitting there saying, no one understands me. No one's got it as hard as I have. And you're, like you said, you're kind of refusing to be understood at that point.
Yeah, but that's what you want. Like, you're asking people to understand, but you're closed off to the understanding and the empathy when people do try.
And you probably so deeply want to be understood and want someone to reach out and help you. But you're in that stage of separation, of being pissed off and continuing to argue for your limitations. I read a book that just changed my life when I was going through it, before I had started making the changes, and I was in that place of woe is me, poor me. And it's funny because my grandmother sent me this book. And it was so sweet, you know, of her to be like, I think this might help you, dear. Because that's how she talks, right? But it was called You Can Heal Your Life. And I had never heard of the author before. It was Louise Hay. She's huge in the personal development, spirituality kind of realm. But I had never heard of her. And I just decided, well, my grandma said this might help me, so I'm going to read this book. And there was a part in the book where she said, a part of you enjoys being sick. A part of you is getting something from being sick. And she talked about, think about when you're a kid and you get a cold. And I mean, everybody's upbringing is different, but most people, you know, you get sick, your mom starts looking after you, your dad, they make you soup, you know, they're coddling you,
I love being sick. It's like, you know, time I get
someone looking after you.
Bring tea to my bed. I'm like, I would love one.
Right?
It's
You're
crazy.
Like, oh yeah, and life is hard sometimes. So to have someone like looking after you for a time feels good. And so in the book it said, like, part of you is identifying with being a sick person and enjoying the attention that you get for it. And that was like, you know, when you read something that just cuts right through you.
Yeah, you almost like put the book down.
And you're like, holy shit. Like, I wasn't even like ready to admit that to myself, but she called it out and I was like, oh man. Yeah, like, we play a role in our own suffering, and some more than others. Like, some of us choose to stay stuck and choose to be in that limitation. and give all the reasons why.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Long time. I know
Yeah.
people have like a couple of years of it that I can think of for a couple examples. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
You saying it, I'm like, oh, they want you. And I've been told that I need to work on like the couple like year or two ago. And they're like, oh, you need to like with mental health, you need to change your angle of understand. Like you need to like be more empathetic and understanding to it. It's like, okay, so I'll start making it. And then my battle was, like I was saying, it was the whole, that's cool the way you word it because that helps me with that. Oh, okay, like how much empathy and understanding can I give, right? Before it's like, oh, they could also be door shut to it.
Yeah.
They could like, I want help, but they might not be ready to receive it.
Yeah.
And it might be that like interesting catch-22 that they're.
Yeah, and I think there's also when I started coaching, so I transitioned after dealing with my illness, seeing this huge change in my life, to being like super excited, like people need to know this.
Yeah.
I need to get the word out.
Of course.
That food, it can be medicine, and lifestyle can be medicine. Like people need to know.
I love it. Yeah.
So I went back to school. So I'm still running my tattoo shop.
Yes.
I have now had a second child.
Yes.
And now I decided to go back to school to learn nutrition and health coaching. And this was like, I was so passionate about this, about helping people. And being who I am, it was like anybody that I saw suffering at the time, I was like, I can help, you know, wanted to help everybody.
Amazing, yeah.
And I had to learn the hard way that not everybody wants to be helped. Not everybody's ready to be helped.
Tough pill to swallow for sure.
Yeah, and you can't take that on. You can't take on somebody else's journey as your responsibility. So, you know, I had clients that I started working with, and I was like, oh, I know, like, I can help you. I have information that can help you. And so as a result, I'm basically in my mind like, oh yeah, if they just do this and they do this, they're going to feel better. And some would do it and some wouldn't. And that's hard because when you're trying to help people, you want to get results for everybody. But ultimately, it's the individual's journey, it's their path, it's their responsibility to choose to actually implement the information or not. Right. And you can give someone an abundance of information, but that doesn't mean that they're going to make the changes or they're ready to. And who am I to say when that person is ready or what their healing timeline should be? It's not up to me.
No.
But
that's fascinating. Oh man, there's I think I'm curious about unpacking with that is well, first of all, sorry, how long were you in school for? Like, how long was the nutrition and health studies?
I started, my initial course was a year long.
Nice.
My holistic health coaching course. And then I went on to do more courses in functional nutrition. Nice. And have continued to educate myself over the past
as
10 years.
As things change and
whatever. And it's always changing. It's always evolving. There's so much, especially in the last 10 years, that has come out on the topic of healing from chronic illness. That,
Have you ever gone back to see that doctor that said there's no studies?
No.
Oh, you should.
No.
You should. Bring him a page of a study. When you do a study. And, you know, and be like, hey, look, so.
Well, and the other thing that is really interesting is there was no talk about, like I said, the link between my physical illness, mental health, trauma. That was not even a blip on the radar when I received my diagnosis.
Right.
So there was no talk about how stress impacts the body and
true. So
anything
number
like
of
that.
years ago.
Yeah. And now we're getting there, and I love that the conversation is going there, and that people are being cared for as a whole person instead of being chopped up into little pieces and sent to all of these specialists.
Specialists, Specialists,
Yeah.
And do you have, like, where'd you study? Like, is there like one spot you go to like every time to go, or like it's just a bunch of different places?
different courses. So my initial course was through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. It's U.S. based out of New York.
Yeah.
I learned so much. That just was like opened my brain to the whole conversation about holistic health, meaning, and I think that term is probably thrown around a lot, and people don't really understand what it really means.
Yeah,
but
how would you define it?
ultimately, it means everything in your life impacts everything in your health. And there is no separation between physical, mental, and there's layers of healing. You know, our emotional healing is just as important as our physical healing, as our mental. It's all fluid and goes back and forth. So supporting somebody's health means supporting someone as a complete picture. And a lot of where I start with people is helping them to look at the factors in their life that are influencing their health.
Amazing, yeah.
So, for example, I had a friend that has the same illness as me, that was really suffering through a severe flare-up for a long time, and she was on all these sorts of meds, and even the medication wasn't helping, and she was in a toxic relationship for years, finally left the guy, and like a switch, like her flare-up stopped. Her body did a 180.
You're kidding.
Literally overnight. When the stress of that relationship was removed from her life.
She probably didn't think it was that bad in the relationship, like didn't feel like...
No, it was one of those toxic back and forth, fighting all the time, break up, get back together, break up, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it
Not
went,
fun.
she was with the guy for years and didn't make the connection, and then within a week of moving out and leaving, it was like everything in her body just shut off. All the inflammation, everything just shut off. And it was like, if that doesn't tell you how powerful like our life, our mental state is, you know, on our physical health, like,
Oh, jeez. Huh. I'm looking, now I have a bunch of stuff I want to read into.
Oh my gosh, tell me about it.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
I have 8 books on the go at any given time.
Geez,
Like, I can't get enough of this stuff. And
no kidding.
I just signed up for another, like, one-of-a-kind course that'll start next spring on neuronutrition. And learning how to support the brain and body simultaneously to heal from chronic illness.
Like through nutrition.
Yeah, the link, and this specifically deals with the link between trauma and chronic illness and what is happening in the brain, because there are physiological changes that happen in the brain when we experience trauma. And I just love this stuff.
That's so cool. Why'd you end up in Sudbury?
Ended up here because my partner got a job here, so the move was kind of driven that way. But I love it here. I actually have met some of the greatest friends in Sudbury. I think Sudbury is a town full of amazing people, and
it's kind of crazy when you get to know them.
It is crazy, yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, I've got an amazing group of friends here, and I don't think I ever would have chose Sudbury on a map, like, of a place I want to be, but I love it. I love being here.
It's one of those things, though, where it's like I've met people in Sudbury that are like on both ends of the spectrum in terms of they're either in the outdoors community and they're around these positive people who do things outdoors, healthy living. It's very like that community. But then on the flip side, there's like the old school trade miner, well, I should say underground miner mentality.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, I know a lot of people in trade that are pretty like easygoing, right?
Yeah.
And open to things, but there's there's both sides of that where like they're like depressed just because of what they put themselves through for 40 years, but they're stuck. They're like, well, I'm working underground. I have 9 different mortgage payments, loans on different things that I wanted, which
I have to afford all of these things.
So you say I have to afford, not I want to or I can. No, they have to. It's their lifeline, and it's sad because they're stuck.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's kind of the reality of majority of the people. But then you have those communities that are all like based just outdoors, fitness, healthy living. You're like, these people aren't that bad.
Yeah, and I love the balance of that here.
It's very much so.
You know, growing up in northwestern Ontario, being surrounded by lakes and trees, it feels like home here. there is that very grounded. I find the people to be very like grounded and very easygoing for the most part. Not super vanity based.
No.
You know, people are pretty down to earth and chill, and yeah. But there is that other side. And
there is, yeah.
I think that Sudbury is kind of characterized by that other side. Like a lot of people view it in that way.
Absolutely.
But when you're a person who's lived all over the place, I've lived all over the country, traveled all over the world, you ultimately realize that one place is as good as any other, and it's what you make it, right? It's how you view it that is everything. So
yeah, I love that. That reminds me of every time somebody around my jiu-jitsu coach says it is what it is, he'll be like, no, it's what you make of it.
Yeah.
And like he'll shut people down because everybody says that all the time. He's like, no, it's not what it is. It's stupid. It's what you make of it.
Yeah. Oh,
Just
I love that guy already.
Yeah, he's the man. But there's as soon as he said it, I was like, oh yeah, because there is like you can find the negativity anywhere if you're willing to look for it, but you could also find the opposite. Right? Like
100%.
Anywhere from Kandahar to Dryden, right? So it's
cool.
and
ultimately, I believe that that goes right back to like my mission nowadays is letting people know that you can heal and that life is what you make it, and it's what you decide it is. And if you are subscribing to the idea of thought that you have an illness or you have a struggle and you're being defined by it, and that's what you're destined to be, then that's exactly what you're going to create. And so that's where I'm at these days, is just trying to spread the message that like healing is possible, but it largely has to do with your mindset and what you believe is possible.
Absolutely. Do you have where can people find you and work with you? Where can they hear your story, reach out, connect with you, work with you, get a tattoo from you, all that stuff? I'll lay out a red carpet for you.
I actually announced my my retirement from tattooing. So at the end of this year, I'm going to be done. I want to fully immerse myself in my coaching path and continue to educate myself and help people. But people can find me on Instagram, all the socials at Coach Amanda Diamond, and that's where I hang out most days.
Easy.
Yeah.
Right on. Amanda, this has been great. Thank you very much.
This has been great.
Yeah, I really appreciate you doing this in your time, and I'm grateful you're able to sit down and chat with me. I learned a lot, so I'm very very excited to watch this back
good.
and share it.
Yeah,
so,
it was a great conversation.
Right on. Yeah, that's pretty much it.